are going to talk about some crazy shit that dropped almost a week ago now. So ExxonMobil is in a bit of hot water right now. Now, I'm not a big fan of ExxonMobil. Everybody knows that, judging by the last segment we just did. But there was an interesting video that leaked. There was an ExxonMobil lobbyist, a senior lobbyist. Let me get his name. It's in this article. Oh, man, I'm tired. Anybody else tired? Who wants to take a nap? I want to take a nap. No, I can't. I gotta be up early tomorrow. Jesus Christ. What the hell is this guy's name? ExxonMobil lobbyist Keith McCoy. So ExxonMobil senior lobbyist Keith McCoy was caught on video pretty much admitting that ExxonMobil is lying to the public about believing in a carbon tax because they know it'll never happen. That's just like the broad... that's just the broad part of it. Excuse me. So he pretty much lied about a... Well, he didn't pretty much lie. He did lie. Well, he didn't lie. ExxonMobil as a company is lying. They say they support a carbon tax because they know, in his words, that it won't pass. Now, this is done by channel4news.com. This is a UK website that had the investigative team made it seem like Mr. McCoy was doing a video job interview. So he was boasting and showing off the fact that he lobbied for ExxonMobil in not only lying about a carbon tax, but also buying certain politicians in order to strip out climate change initiatives in the upcoming Biden infrastructure package. If you look at the original infrastructure plan, before it's been rewritten a million times and there have been 17,000 debates about it, there were a lot of climate initiatives in there. Now, there's almost none. And the reason for that, largely, is because ExxonMobil lobbyists attack the pay force. They say a whole multitude of different shite about it. So Keith McCoy also admitted to using, quote, shadow groups to fight against the legislation. He lobbied key senators to diminish climate change. He used trade bodies like American Petroleum Institute as, quote, whipping boys to avoid public scrutiny on Capitol Hill. He said, quote, McCoy said, quote, "Did we aggressively fight against some of the science? Yes. Did we hide our science? Absolutely not. Did we join some of these shadow groups to work against some of the early efforts? Yes, that's true. But there's nothing illegal about that." And he's right about that. There's nothing illegal about it. And that is even more disgusting, that there's nothing illegal about joining dark money shadow groups and purchasing politicians in order for them to vote against, like, some of the most necessary and needed change. Forget about everything else. Forget about economic equality. Forget about racial equality. Forget about sexual equality. Forget about all of that. Okay? Forget it, right? It's off the table. If we don't solve the climate problem, we're not going to be here long enough to be able to solve all the other problems. Okay? This is problem number one that we need to solve, like, this decade, or we're fucked in the long term. I will be dead long before the earth burns up into a million pieces, but the human race won't be, right? So the most egregious thing, he says, in my view, is we're looking out for our investments. We're looking out for our shareholders. Oh, my God. So the ExxonMobil spokesperson, the PR people say, quote, "We have supported climate change for decades." Yeah, we know that's a lie now, pal. Well, we've always kind of known it's a lie, but now we have, like, ironclad evidence that it's a lie. Let's see, other dumbass quotes that this idiot said. McCoy said, quote, when you have the opportunity to talk to a member of Congress, it's like fishing, right? You have bait, which is money. You throw out the bait and they say, oh, you want to talk about infrastructure? Yeah. And then you start to reel them in. You start to have these conversations about federal leasing programs. You start to have these conversations about a carbon tax. You know, it's all these opportunities that you use, and I use the fishing analogy again, just to kind of reel them in. Then he added, quote, I make sure I get them the right information they need so they look good. Then they help me out. They're a captive audience. They know they need you, and I need them. The bait is money. The bait is the shadow groups investing millions of dollars into super PACs that these candidates can do whatever they want with. It's like so gross. McCoy name dropped 11 senators. 11 senators that are, quote, crucial to ExxonMobil. That are crucial to ExxonMobil. Quote, Senator Shelley Moore, Joe Manchin, my favorite, Kristen Sinema, John Tester, Maggie Hassan, John Barroso, John Corwin, I don't know if I said that right, Steve Daines, Chris Coons, Mark Kelly, and Marco Rubio. By the way, that's a pretty even Democrat-Republican 50-50 split. All right, so this isn't one side or the other acting bad here. This is both sides fucking up. This is both sides being purchased by the largest energy conglomerate on Earth, I think. One of them. The Channel 4 News in UK reached out to all the senators, and all the senators declined to comment. Channel 4 News has established through the Federal Election Commission, all except two of the senators, Maggie Hassan and Mark Kelly, have received financial contributions from ExxonMobil. Weird, right? ExxonMobil insists, quote, our lobbying efforts fully comply with all laws and are publicly disclosed on a quarterly basis. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine in my opinion, but by the letter of the law, that's fine. That's the big problem, is these lobbying firms and these fucking assholes are allowed to just give hundreds of millions of dollars a year to these people. I said last week that an American senator has the most power, or some of our American senators are some of the most powerful people in the world. And how is it okay for a massive multinational corporation, forget about who it is, Exxon, Microsoft, Amazon, Walmart, forget about who it is. How is it okay for those massive corporations to be able to basically purchase laws? They are the ones writing these laws, not the people that we think are writing the laws. Why? Because they're allowed to make these massive contributions and have secret meetings with senators in order to craft their own legislation. In this specific instance, it happened to be ExxonMobil. Now, that's going to have the most dire consequence, okay? When Amazon crafts legislation, they craft legislation to get tax cuts, or Jeff Bezos gets $10 million from fucking NASA to go to space, or shocking and disgusting, they lobby against unions to keep the worker voice down. All of that is horrible, yeah, but this is like literally a matter of life or death, because ExxonMobil lobbyists admitted that they fought against early initial science surrounding climate change. And they were largely successful in getting a lot of these climate provisions out of this upcoming infrastructure plan, which I find like shocking. McCoy described Senator, guess who, Joe Manchin, as the, quote, kingmaker in the Senate. He says he spoke to his office on a weekly basis. Federal Election Commission data shows that Senator Manchin received at least $12,500 from ExxonMobil Political Action Committee in declared distributor statements since the beginning of 2011 and 2012 election cycle. Mr. McCoy described a, quote, big piece of his job is education and advocacy, and says that his work on behalf of ExxonMobil, he argues that the U.S. government programs to roll out electric vehicles are unrealistic. He said, quote, the research and development conservation has taken us a long way because of climate change. There is a struggle to find solutions and to get the reductions that they're looking for. And you're not going to be able to just switch to battery operated vehicles or wind for your electricity. And just having that conversation around why it's not possible in the next 10 years is critically important to the work we do. So he's essentially lying to Senator Manchin and other senators saying, hey, look, man, it's not even possible to do what you guys are trying to do in 10 years. So why are we even talking about it in this infrastructure plan? When that's what he's saying in public, but in private, he's over here like, yeah, we did it because we're looking out for our shareholders, and we're hiding science, and we're arguing against it and using billions of dollars in campaign contributions in order to purchase the politicians that are going to vote the way we want them to so we can stay filthy rich. The planet's on fire? The ocean is literally on fire? Who cares? I won't be around when the planet explodes. But I have 2 yachts and couple cars, few houses, big houses too. We're talking big, like millions. Got a private jet. See what else? I have a chef that cooks for me every day. I pretty much don't even need to get off the couch. I can pretty much lay on the couch and make phone calls all day and eat the finest food possible. Yeah, my life's pretty good. Everyone else's sucks ass. In New York, subways are flooding. Polar ice caps are melting. Let's see what else. In the Pacific Northwest, roads are buckling because it's so hot. Crazy. Anyway, so who wants more money in order so we can not actually fight this and I can get richer? It's sick, man. It's really, really gross. There's a section in this article called, quote, Whipping Boy. And it says, Mr. McCoy described a lobbying strategy which he claims ExxonMobil used third parties to mask its interest from public view and accountability. McCoy saying, quote, we don't want it to be us to have these conversations, especially in a hearing. It's getting our associations to step in and have the conversations and answer the tough questions. For lack of a better term, the whipping boy for some of these members of Congress. He added, quote, there was something we were working on earlier this week where our CEO was involved in a hearing from a member of Congress who we know is just going to rip him to shreds. He goes there. So we look at it and we say, well, why us? He's saying here they use these shadow groups and whipping boys, in his words, as like shadow corporations and these different associations that take the brunt of the force, and they are looking like the ones advocating against the infrastructure package or lobbying against climate change or electric vehicles or what have you. So the focus by Congress and the public scrutiny is off of Exxon. And Exxon can run these public ads, and their PR people are talking about how, we're, doing new carbon capture technology, and we believe in a carbon tax to save the planet. But in reality, in the closed-door, smoke-filled room meetings, they're not doing any of that. They're not doing any of that. So now we move into how ExxonMobil lobbied Congress to dilute the climate provisions of President Biden's infrastructure bill. McCoy said, quote, this is a completely different conversation when you have to start. Sorry, let me start over. The way this guy talks is fucking annoying. That's a completely different conversation when you start to stick to roads and bridges. Instead of a $2 trillion bill, it's an $800 billion bill. If you lower that threshold, you stick to highways and bridges, then you get a lot of negative stuff that starts to come out. Why would you put something on emissions reductions on on climate change to oil refineries in a highway bill. So people say, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And then you get to say, well, that shouldn't be in the bill. So essentially they lobby Congress and they have these assholes go in there and they say, wait guys, this is infrastructure. This is roads and bridges. Why are we talking about emissions here? And then the absolute morons that supposedly represent us, who, 9 out of the 11 are getting thousands, sometimes millions of dollars from these Exxon people. They're saying, yeah, why are we talking about emissions here? I don't know if it's ignorance, stupidity, just simply not caring. But if you're going into a negotiation for a infrastructure bill, and somebody from a corporation at the level of Exxon comes in and they start advocating against emissions provisions in the bill, why doesn't that raise red flags, right? Why doesn't me as a representative of the people say, hold on, you represent ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is a $1 billion corporation having to do with fossil fuels. And you want me to argue against the emissions provisions in the infrastructure bill because it doesn't make any sense because this is a highway bill. And you just gave me $12,000 this cycle. How does that not raise a red flag for that politician to say, oh, maybe they aren't actually telling me everything. Maybe they're trying to bribe me into getting this out of the bill because it's going to affect their bottom line. Listen, pal, fuck your bottom line, okay? Fuck your bottom line. Your bottom line's not going to matter if you don't have a planet, dumbass. It doesn't even make sense. He comes out, ExxonMobil, okay, so now we're talking to their PR, not the lobbyists when Channel 4 reached out, says, quote, our discussion on the bill are not accurately portrayed. Our lobbying efforts are related to a tax burden that could disadvantage us as a business. Yeah, okay. Carbon tax. They talk about a carbon tax. By the way, this video that leaked, you can watch it for yourself on this website. I will put a link to it. We're not going to watch it here because it's like close to 10 minutes long, even though I've been talking for probably more than that. But it's just easier to go through the transcript of it. So let's see, where were we? I scrolled up to see. Okay, so now we're on the carbon tax. They talk about the carbon tax. Let's see. ExxonMobil's public support for a carbon tax is underpinned by the conviction that it'll never happen, allowing the company to support it in order to appear green. That's coming from Channel 4. McCoy, lobbyist, says, I will tell you there's not an appetite for a carbon tax. It's a non-starter. Nobody's going to propose a tax on all Americans. And the cynical side of me says, yeah, we kind of know that, but it gives us a talking point. We can say, what is ExxonMobil for? Well, we're for a carbon tax. Carbon tax is not going to happen. I have always said, and I've worked on climate change issues for 20 years. There's a lot of talk around it, and the bottom line is it's going to take political courage and political will in order to get something like that done. And that just doesn't exist in politics. It doesn't. And he's right. That's not going to happen because he's correct. The political will and the political courage to actually fight for something like a carbon tax, it will never happen because there's going to be too much red tape involved. There's going to be too much fighting involved. You're going to lose campaign contributions from companies like Exxon. So they're right. It's not going to happen. So it's easy for them to say, yeah, we support a carbon tax. Sure, go ahead. It's like they're calling the bluff. They're like, yeah, tax us or tax carbon. We dare you. Everyone uses carbon. Tax it. We dare you. Do it. Go ahead. Try, pal. And it's not going to happen. It's gross. It's really gross. Mr. McCoy also expressed a corporate view that, contrary to science, natural gas is a clean energy source. He says, quote, on a clean electricity standard, we think natural gas will play a key role in anything? What? The way this guy talks is just awful. It says, on a clean electricity standard, we think natural gas will play a key role. And it is not just a bridge fuel. We think it is a low emissions energy source that should be part of a clean electricity standard. I don't really know why he even brought that up. Everybody knows that's stupid. So ExxonMobil had a statement, right, after this video dropped and, the public started freaking out. A spokesperson for ExxonMobil told Channel 4 News, Greenpeace has waged a multi-decade campaign against our company and industry, which has included false claims and unlawful actions at our facilities, as well as those other companies around the world. Our lobbying efforts are related to a tax burden that could disadvantage U.S. business. We have made the position known publicly. ExxonMobil stands by our position that increased taxes on American businesses make the U.S. less competitive. We have been clear in supporting an efficient, economy-wide price on carbon as the best way to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. While there is not a broad support for the tax, we are actively and publicly discussing other options, including lowering carbon fuel and other sector-based approaches that would place a uniform, predictable cost on carbon. We have supported climate science for decades. Greenpeace and others have distorted our position on climate science and our support for effective policy solutions. ExxonMobil transparently engages with a variety of trade associations, think tanks, and coalitions in order to promote informed dialogue and sound public policy in areas pertinent to the corporation's interests. ExxonMobil exercises its right to exchange and lobbying in the United States and both the federal and state levels to advocate our positions on issues that affect our corporation and the energy industry. We have a responsibility to our customers, employees, communities, and shareholders to represent their interest in public policy discussions that impact our business. Our lobbying efforts fully comply with all laws and are publicly disclosed on a quarterly basis, including the issues we discuss. That was ExxonMobil's official statement after this video dropped. Now, this goes on every day. Every day this happens in the federal government, where we have multinational corporations pretty much paying the government to craft laws for them and not the people. We all know, right? We had a hunch. We know it happens. We know that our government is bought and paid for by corporations. We know that. But this is a window into just how skeevy and just how gross it actually is. It's frankly infuriating that because ExxonMobil knows deep down that climate change is happening, but they want to put profit over prosperity. And they are willing to go to such lengths as using shadow groups and, quote, whipping boys to hide behind while they push their agenda. That's gross. And Ro Khanna is a progressive leader in Congress. He is threatening subpoena power if ExxonMobil CEOs and board members do not testify in front of Congress. Now, that would be cool, but that's not really going to solve anything. But I see where he's coming from. He talks in a New York Times article about how they've had, investment bankers, big tech giants, pharma, large company CEOs testify in front of Congress, for good reason. But they've never had anyone from the fossil fuel industry. Why is that? Well, now we know why that is with the shadow groups and the whipping boys and everything else. But he's threatening subpoena power if they don't testify. I hope they testify. I would like to see that. I would like to see the government. Now, half the time in those, testimonies in those hearings, they don't get anywhere because the people running our government are idiots, especially with the big tech hearings talking about their maybe it'll go better for the fossil fuel industry because the fossil fuel industry has been around for 100 years, and the big tech really hasn't, because watching the big tech hearings and watching those old crusty morons in the government look at Mark Zuckerberg in the face and say, how do you make money? And Mark Zuckerberg goes, ads. We sell ads. Or the other, I can't remember who it was, but the other fucking idiot, old dumbass, was asking Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, if his Apple phone could track his movements if he walked to the other end of the Senate or House floor. And Sundar Pichai was like, dog, I don't know. That's an Apple phone. I'm the Google CEO. So you'd probably have to ask Apple if the phone's tracking you. It was a shit show. It was so funny, but so disappointing. And it would probably be a little bit better with the fossil fuels, but it probably wouldn't go anywhere anyway.